Strand Hunter has always been a fun subclass to play, but with the new Hunter Strand aspect Whirling Maelstrom, this subclass just became the most potent in the fantasy department. Straight up ninja-like. And on the outside looking in, there doesn't seem to be much that comes from this raw and shuriken looking dude. He does great passive damage, but nothing too overpowered to make him the main runner-up for ad clearing. When he defeats an enemy, he does send out little needles of unraveling to debuff enemies for that extra damage, and though in situations of dense pockets of enemies that would actually be busted beyond belief, it's not an everyday situation. And lastly, he tracks ads, but travels very slowly. So at first glance, this Whirling Maelstrom seems like nothing more than just a nice addition to have on the field. But what I'm about to tell you might sound weird. But if you look to this Maelstrom as more of a teammate versus just something you throw out onto the field like a grenade, you can do some devastating room clearing even in some of the most hardest endgame content, as well as have some of the most fun you will ever have in Destiny 2. I for one think the Whirling Maelstrom officially made the Strand Hunter my favorite subclass. I have never seen a build in Destiny 2 that can make a player's playstyle reach such a level of high octane before in my life. Now, with that said, you're probably wondering how has an entity that is separate from you going to completely change the style of play? And that's actually because the Whirling Maelstrom is not a separate entity at all. Everything it does can have a direct response leading back to you, but only by pairing it with certain strand fragments. And with the two of you combined on the field, you will be taking constant advantage of every strand verb there is for maximum results. So let's get into the build. For both your fragments, of course the first one being the Whirling Maelstrom, and for your second one it will be the Ensnaring Slam. This is where we will be getting our suspend from only. I know we do also have shackle grenades, and though they are nice to have, you won't need them for this build. So instead, not only to pair with the exotic that we will be using, but just for the maximum amount of fun, we are going to be going with the grapple grenade. One of the main reasons why is that it is a great way to rally back to the Maelstrom quickly, and since it is a moving tangle, it won't even consume your grenade. And to lead in with a punch to stack on top of the damage that the Maelstrom is also inflicting, will still spawn unraveling needles for that extra area coverage. So now moving on to the fragments, 3 out of 4 of these apply to the Maelstrom as well as yourself. For starters, the Thread of Generation, which simply states that by dealing damage you will receive grenade energy. For those times that you can't grapple or choose not to grapple onto the Maelstrom, he still has you covered. For every tick of damage the Maelstrom does, will come back to you as grenade energy, and without needing it to really be said, you doing damage in general will make you receive more grenade energy as well. And now that the grenade ability is covered, time to get into the melee. With the Thread of Fury on, you will receive melee energy. Now this one is damage oriented, meaning the massive explosion from the initial landing of the tangle will give you the biggest chunk of melee energy. But after the Maelstrom gets swirling, you will receive rapid ticks of energy back. And with the recent buffs to the Threaded Spike melee, this is something you're going to want to use in your attack rotation. Not only is it reliable in endgame content to be able to quickly spawn a tangle, but for any enemy you can't defeat, it will apply a sever to decrease the enemy's outgoing damage by 40%. And now finally, the class ability. With Thread of Mind, you are able to receive class ability energy for every enemy defeated if they are suspended. So by tag teaming with your Maelstrom by using the Ensnaring Slam, and then the both of you splitting the work up, you can get a good amount of your class ability back. And just like that, you and your Maelstrom are able to keep you as filled as possible in the energy department. Now it's time to deck yourself out just a little bit more. For our final fragment, it will just be Thread of Warding, simply because Woven Mail is busted. Gotta have it. When you're playing this deep in enemy territory, you're gonna need it. Now before we move on to the mods and exotics, I want to briefly go over the artifact mods that can make the Whirling Maelstrom even more of a top pick. So first off, if you just want to have a higher chance of spawning them just off base weapon damage, pack a strand weapon and pair it with Thanatonic Tangles. Hopefully I said that correctly. Quicksilver Storm can spawn its own using the grenades, but if you want the gunfire to have a chance too to spawn them, then this is your mod. Up next will be the Refreshing Pickups. That states that just by picking up a tangle, you will receive more energy for your least powered ability. And lastly, which has to be the best one here, would be Elemental Munitions, which states combatant final blows with tangles have a chance to drop special or heavy ammo. And if we're following the same logic as Thread of Fury, this means your Whirling Maelstrom is actually able to spawn ammo for you. This artifact mod alone has me begging begging Titans and Warlocks to just surrender your tangles to the Hunters. You just cannot compete with this, I'm sorry. And now for the exotic along with the mods, I highly recommend however you pronounce this exotic, something facade. With the grapple being your best friend in the fight, this exotic will apply woven mail for that constant 55% increase in resistance. Now for the mods, we are focusing on helping out the fragments as much as possible to keep those abilities filled. So for the headpiece, it will just be a way to spawn orbs. And though I'm not masterworked here, because this piece is from collections, if you were to masterwork it, you could throw on a heavy ammo finder. Up next is the arms. To help out with the melee energy, I went with a kickstart mod. This will make use of the armor charges that you will gain passively just by picking up orbs that you're really going to be picking up for the woven mail. And in addition, it'll just be an extra way to spawn orbs, which would be heavy-handed through the threaded spike. Threaded spike is good now, really, just don't sleep on it. For the chest piece, it's just going to be standard defense mods, typical stuff really. Moving on to the legs, we have recuperation and insulation. For every time we're going to pick up an orb, not only are we refilling our health, but we're also going to be having just a little bit go back to our class ability. At this rate, picking up an orb does everything under the sun for you. Woven mail fuels your melee kickstart, a bump in the class ability section, and a bump in just health in general. And now lastly for our class piece, the only important thing here that I will list is going to be the Reaper mod. For every time you go in for a suspend and then get the kill, you will spawn an orb of power. Lots of orbs, lots of abilities, absolute nutty gameplay, and by far the most fun I have ever had in Destiny 2 to this date. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video, and if you hit that subscribe for me, I would love you all for it. I will be streaming the day one here on YouTube, hopefully. But if not, I do still have a kick. Alright, I'll take care now. Peace.